time, I will call roll. When your name is called, please answer with here or present. Ramon Garza, President.
Here.
Jeff Miller, Vice President.
Jeff Miller here.
Adrian Stevens, Secretary. Trustees Wilfred J. Broussard Jr. Wanda Heath Johnson.
Wanda Johnson, present.
And Noah Esparza.
You're on mute, Noe.
Noe.
Noe Esparza present, sorry.
Also joining us through video conference and will respond with here or present are Sharonda Johnson, Executive Director for School and Community Relations, and Brishan Thompson, Coordinator for School and Community Relations. Wilfred J. Broussard Jr., Trustee.
Here.
The following participants will be located in the boardroom at 14705 Wood Forest Boulevard, Houston, Texas, 77015. Please answer here or present when your name is called. Trustee Norma Hernandez. John Moore, Associate Superintendent for Operations.
Here.
Terry Moore, Associate Superintendent for Accountability and Academic Support.
Here.
Brian Clements, Chief of Police and Executive Director for Security and Cybersecurity.
Here.
Geneva Boyette, Executive Assistant to the Board of Trustees and Superintendent.
Here.
Anna Salinas, Administrative Assistant to the Superintendent's Office. And I, Dr. Angie Williams, Superintendent of Schools, here. Staff members in the boardroom will practice social distancing as required where there will be no more than 6 people in the boardroom as outlined. We will use masks, hand sanitizers, disinfectants, etc. as recommended. The video conference will be facilitated by the board president and staff as needed. Again, in an attempt to follow all health-related guidelines, everyone will practice social distancing. I will now turn this meeting over to Ramon Garza, Board President.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. A quorum is present. This workshop is now called to order. The time is 4:05 p.m. At this time, I will turn the floor over to Sonia George, Deputy Superintendent for Operational Support, Chief Financial Officer, who will provide the 2020 through 21 budget workshop. Ms. George?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Can you enable my screen sharing? Okay, so all right. So just let me know if you have any problems seeing the PowerPoint. So I'm really excited to be here today to go through this information with you. We're a little bit delayed this year. Typically, we would have held our first budget workshop with you in April. So due to circumstances beyond all of our control, we're a little bit delayed in being able to present this information to you. I'm going to review several topics with you this afternoon. First, I'm going to do a quick recap of House Bill 3 and talk about the impact that House Bill 3 is having on education funding in the state. I'm also going to do a quick review of where we are at in the current year, 2019-20, what we adopted in the budget and what we expect as far as our actuals. And then I'm going to review where we are at in our planning and developing the 2020-21 budget. So just very quickly, I want to again go back through House Bill 3. House Bill 3 was a very significant change in the way public education is funded in the state. In previous years, the burden had become increasing upon the property taxpayer to fund public education. And so there were some commitments made and political commitments. And a result of the last legislative session in House Bill 3, there was a substantial change from relying on property tax revenue to relying on state aid to fund public education. So how that impacted us for 2019-20, I just want to remind you that we had over a 10-cent decrease in our maintenance and operations tax rate. And then that tax compression will continue into 2020-21. And then what begins to happen is that each year, depending on what the property values are that are certified by the county appraisal district. So for us, Harris County Appraisal District, those certified property values will become what sets your maintenance and operations tax rate. So right now we're projecting that we will lose an additional penny on the tax rate for the maintenance and operations side for 2021. House Bill 3 did make an allowance that local boards, given voter approval through tax ratification elections, that you could recover up to 3 pennies of that lost tax rate. The interesting thing, though, is for Galena Park ISD, the way the funding formulas are working, we receive what's called a formula transition grant. And the way the formula transition grant works is that we don't benefit from a tax ratification election here locally in increasing overall revenue until that grant expires for us. And right now, the projected expiration of that is 2024. So you could proceed with holding a tax ratification election, or sometimes you're going to commonly hear that referred to as a TRE. But it doesn't really benefit us to do that, because what would happen is that additional local money off of tax revenue would just be lost in our state aid formulas. So we would be placing a burden on our local taxpayers instead of the state picking up their share. So again, we don't see any benefit for Galena Park to hold any type of TRE possibly until the year 2024. And that's just important, I think, for you to know moving forward, because you're going to hear a lot of districts in the area talk about tax ratification elections. And I just wanted you to know where we stood as far as that being beneficial or not for us. So in addition to all of these tax changes, we are no longer funded off of prior year property values. Instead, we're going to be funded off of current year controller value. So the State Controller of Texas certifies a value that's separate and in addition to the value that's established by the county appraisal district. And this controller value now is what's going to set how the funding formula works for us moving forward. And again, the main way to increase funding under House Bill 3 for school districts is through the increased enrollment or in serving certain student population groups. And then one other reminder is that House Bill 3 is the bill where we are now mandated to serve our students with a mandatory full-day pre-K. So now I'm going to go through 2019-20 and talk about where we're at as far as our budget versus our actuals. So when you adopted the budget back last August, we had been told by the Harris County Appraisal District we would have property values of about $10.1 billion, and we've seen a slight decline in that amount to about $9.9 billion. So not too much of a change, but a small change. One significant change that we've seen is that we have a lower tax collection, and this is because we have two very large tank farms that are in our taxing boundaries that are in litigation, and currently there is a tax bill due that they have not given us about $2 million of that. So we're seeing some lower tax collections than what we had anticipated. And then also our average daily attendance is down just a little bit from where you adopted the budget at. So we're down about 44 students. So it's not much of a decline, but a small decline. And then on the expenditure side, when we adopted the budget, we adopted it with a $9 million surplus. We had a large surplus, but we knew that we had to plan for full day pre-K. So during the year, we've amended the budget. We several $1 million to take care of deploying and preparing for full day pre-K. We've done a lot of technology upgrades, infrastructure equipment. We've put a lot of money into life cycle. Last legislative session, there were a lot of initiatives that came out related to school safety and also cybersecurity. And we have also spent a lot of money on satisfying those mandated initiatives. And then, of course, here most recently, we've had some additional costs related to COVID-19 mitigation and our response to that. So overall, though, what I want to show you, and I just want you to focus on the center column on this. I know there's a lot of numbers on this slides, and it's a little difficult doing this remotely, but in the estimated actual column, that shows you where we anticipate that we will end the year at. So we're projecting that we're going to receive $244 million in revenue in our general fund. Our total expenditures right now are projected to be slightly under $241 million. So we're projecting right now that we will have a surplus, and so we should see an additional increase in our fund balance at the end of this year, which is August 31st. So now I want to talk to you about just planning and as we look forward. And again, I'm going to circle back just briefly about House Bill 3. So House Bill 3 really committed the state to a very large burden. So the state right now is committed to about $15 billion in extra expenditures related to public education across the state. Historically, the state had relied on increasing property values, and the state portion had been declining. And, they corrected that with House Bill 3. But unfortunately, due to that correction and given the current economic state, there are some concerns that we're starting to hear about the state's ability to fund their commitment that they have made under House Bill 3. We don't have any information yet from the Texas Education Agency, any hard numbers of any possible declines. And actually what we're hearing is that we think for 2021 that we may be okay. It may be that the anticipated adverse economic impact is actually projected to come into play more in 2021 and years after that. So one thing I do want you to see is, and I want you to understand what happens under House Bill 3. So for us, for many years since I have been here at Galena Park, we have seen benefit year after year due to our property values increasing locally. And what I really want you to pay attention to, I want you to look at the bottom line across this chart. And I want you to see how in 1920, we have $224 million in total revenue. And I want you to see how that total revenue number does not change. Now, in these numbers, we have adjusted property values, and the tax rate, as I indicated to you, automatically adjust according to a funding formula now that's provided to us from the state. So we don't have any control locally over what happens with the maintenance and operations tax rate any longer. The thing that does not change here is I've not changed our average daily attendance. So I thought that this would just demonstrate to you that property values are not a big factor any longer in funding what happens out of your general fund for your maintenance and operation budget. Really, what matters now is what happens with your student population. And if the student population doesn't change, then technically you're just held at a flat level moving forward. Does anybody have any questions about that slide? Okay. All right. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about 2021 and where we're at. So we do have our new property values from the Harris County Appraisal District. They gave us a projected increase of a little over 2%. Right now, tentatively, about $10.1 billion is what they're projecting on property values. Again, this doesn't impact us so much as I've just shown you on maintenance and operations. It does impact us on our debt side and the rate that we are required to set so that we can repay our bonded debt. Again, we won't get actual certified values from Harris County Appraisal District until mid to late August, but this is the required certified preliminary value that they provided to us as of April the 30th. So in addition, we do have information on health insurance rates for the upcoming year for our employees. Again, we are covered under TRS Active Care. We do have a change. We've been provided coverage from Aetna that will go to Blue Cross Blue Shield. And I really don't want to get in too much into the details of all these changes on the insurance. I just want to say that the majority of our employees take that first line, the Active Care one, the high deductible. That's where the majority of our employees are covered at. And there is a small decrease that's expected in that line. They added a couple of additional plans to us. They made some major modifications on plans. They had a big initiative this past year where they really went out and they had a lot of regional meetings out throughout the state, and they received a lot of input from school districts on what type of improvements that we felt like that we needed to see for our employees. And so I think that we will see, but so far it looks like TRS is responding to the information that districts provided to them. All the other employee benefits at this time are expected to be the same. We are looking at the implementation of an employee assistance plan or an EAP program that would allow our employees access to counseling services. And the cost of implementing that is less than $50,000 a year. And we're evaluating that at this point. And looking at possibly putting that into place for next year. And then we would continue telemedicine services, which we've provided now for the last 3 to 4 years for our employees. So again, our early assumptions going into 2021, we have calculated about a 0.5% decrease in our average daily attendance based on obviously our current experience that we are having now. We decided that it would be best to go with a conservative route when we were planning for next year. So we've lowered our average daily attendance by a small amount. I do want to say that on the expenditure side, we do have the money that's included in this projected budget that covers all the costs related to the implementation of full-day pre-K. We have money that's set aside here to continue life cycle projects, technology projects, our fleet upgrades. And then we have some additional positions that are being proposed. These are primarily teacher aide, and campus-based instructional type of positions. And they are included in these projections. On compensation planning, we use the Texas Association of School Boards to help us do a review every year, and we make sure that we are comparable. We do a market comparison with a peer group of districts. And so we've analyzed about 8 different options. with them, and we have two here that we've narrowed down and we've been looking at. So option one would be a 1% general pay increase for our staff and $59,000 start for beginning teachers. Option two would be a 2% general pay increase with a $59,000 start. And what we are hearing in the area so far from other superintendents, other CFOs, that these conservative projections for salary increases would compare well to what we are hearing other districts analyze for their upcoming budgets. So based on looking at these two options, you can see that option one, the 1% general pay increase, is what you see in the first column. And when we've included all of these revenue estimates and the estimated expenditures, we still are showing a surplus budget of about $2.5 million. If we use the option of the 2% GPI, we still have a surplus budget that we are projecting of $2 million. And we feel comfortable right now with projecting a surplus. We realize that we have possibly some challenges that will be facing us as we plan and prepare for 2021. So we feel like analyzing these two conservative general pay increases give us some surplus to work with as we prepare for school to start up next year. This slide here, again, there's a lot of numbers here, and I just want you to really look at the top row, 2021, 21, 22, 22, 23, and then just look at the bottom numbers. And this, again, was what I'm just trying to demonstrate to you, really what's happening with House Bill 3. And if there's not any modifications, there's a legislative session that starts next January. And if House Bill 3 stays in its current form and there's not an increase to the per student funding because of the way that the revenue levels out, as we try to be able to satisfy pay increase requirements, you can see that how the current year we look good for 2021, but for 21, 22, 22, 23, we do start to see that there may be the potential that we would adopt deficit budgets. I just want to remind you, Galena Park ISD, we have a very healthy fund balance. Our fund balance last year when we ended operations 8/31 of 19, we had $166 million of surplus funds in our general fund. So for me to see those types of projections, it doesn't concern me too much because I know that we have funds available to us. However, I do realize that we should be mindful of some of the state pressures that are occurring and then what's happening with revenue under House Bill 3 as we plan moving forward. So our next steps, we would do another workshop in June. I do want to say that typically in May, we have asked the board to approve our general pay increase. We have not done that this month. We would need to do that or hope to be able to do that by the month of June. And also have our compensation recommendations to you, the rest of them. In August, we would have a final budget workshop. We're required to, the board's required to adopt the budget prior to the end of the month. We usually do that the third week in the month of August. The new budget would start on September the 1st, and then we would have a tax rate adoption that would occur in October of 2020. So does anybody have any questions on our planning process or where our projections are at this point?
Ms. George, I have a question.
Yes.
So based on what you just showed us and based on the fund balance that our healthy fund balances you're saying, is what you're saying that you're not concerned that we will have a a deficit in those coming years? Is that what you're saying?
I think what I'm saying is that if it happened that way, if we had a deficit, if the state cuts funding or there's not any changes made to House Bill 3, and we continued at the same level on our expenditures, and we had deficit spending for a couple of years, I'm not concerned by that for a temporary period of time, and for a 2 to 3 year period of time. Typically, I'm always going to recommend to a board that when you have deficit spending, that it's for one-time purchases. I don't like to advise the board to have deficit spending to fund positions or to fund pay raises. But the current budget that we have built now and what we've projected for the future years, there are some one-time items in there that if we wanted to remove those, we could, to try to achieve a balanced budget. So again, I think that's the things that we would have to consider, is that if we did have deficit spending, it would be best if it was on one-time type of purchases. But again, I'm very comfortable with the fund balance that the district has if we were required to do that.
Sonia, given with everything that we're going through and all this, what if we didn't do a pay increase? I mean, most people, I imagine you see everybody, every year you're on the news, people taking rate, decrease rate, dropping, tons of unemployment. What if we didn't take a rate increase?
We could, and we have talked about the option of doing like a one-time payment. So you could not adopt a general pay increase. We could put a provision in place that would allow us to maybe do a one-time payment mid-year, maybe in the form of a retention type of stipend for our employees that returned to Galena Park this next year. So you would have that option. And again, we could go with no increase. I do think that there is at least maybe one other district in the area that we have heard that, has decided that for now that they would go with a 0% pay increase just because of the situation with COVID.
Ms. George, where does that put us in terms of what we pay our teachers with the average, the statewide average? Where would that put us if we did not approve an increase?
So we're still well above, we're above the statewide average. And of course, our goal is to always to be competitive with the districts that are close to us here in our area. So we would still be competitive with area districts if we remained at the current 58 start. So we, and again, I think that's one reason we didn't move forward with a general pay increase recommendation is, the area districts, the districts right here around us, they haven't taken any action yet to approve any pay increases or to move their starting pay up. And I will mention on the one time, we looked a conservative one time, a cost of a one time for employees. It's about $2 million out of our general fund. So, and again, the one benefit to that is that it's not if you made that option, it's not an ongoing committed cost. Where when we do pay increases, now we've committed to pay the employee that amount year after year.
And based on that $2 million estimation, what does that mean for each employee?
That is based on an estimate of every employee would receive a net payment of $500, a one-time net payment of $500.
Thank you.
I have a question, Sonia.
Yes, sir.
The possible rate increase to our teachers and the starting salary of $59,000, are those two separate items? Because I think we still have to try to attract great teachers. So 59,000 is still out there versus this other item where we're talking about increasing salaries to teachers who are current teachers. We're talking about two different things, right? We're still going to do the 59, right? So
No, sir. If we did not, right now we haven't calculated it. If we escalated the beginning teacher pay to 59,000, then what would happen is that we would need to move the pay for teachers probably from that are going to 1 year of experience up to about 5 years of experience. So the teacher pay scale is very compressed in the beginning. So if I move my 0-year teacher up $1,000, then it's going to have a trickle effect and a domino effect, and I'm going to have to move a number of other teachers up. So,
so they're not
be some pay increase that would be experienced at least by those teachers that are in the first 5 years.
So they're not mutually exclusive. So
No,
I get you.
No. So, and if you see these two options here with the beginning teacher of 59,000, and then the 1% and the 2%, that total cost that's there, that does include, it takes into consideration moving that up to 59,000 and those equity adjustments that would be necessary for the teachers with 1 to 5 years of experience.
Tony, let me ask you a question. A little different. Now, since the pandemic and since the kids are not coming back to school by the end of this school year, by chance, will we have to pay any money back to the state? Because enrollment has dropped. Is that correct?
Right. Yes. And no, ma'am, the way that our understanding right now, and the Texas Education Agency the School Finance Division hasn't given us the calculation yet, but there's several experts in the state that have close relationships with the agency. And our understanding is what they're going to do is they are going to take what our average daily attendance was up through the date of the closure, and then they're going to look at previous years and see where we ended at last year, and they're just going to adjust it by a ratio. So they're going to apply a percentage, and that's going to be the way that they're going to fund us. So as long as we can demonstrate that we've been providing instruction, then there's no expectation that we will lose money.
Thank you. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any other questions for Sonia? Thank you, Ms. George.
Thank you so much.
There being no other business before the board at this time, the video conference workshop is adjourned. The time is 4:36 p.m.
Leaders will participate in this emergency board meeting via video conference. At this time, I will call roll. When your name is called, please answer with here or present. Ramon Garza, President.
Here.
Jeff Miller, Vice President.
Here.
Adrian Stevens, Secretary.
Here.
Trustees Wilfred J. Broussard Jr.
Here.
Wanda Heath Johnson.
Wanda Johnson here.
And Noah Esparza.
Noah Esparza here.
Also joining us through video conference and will respond with here or present are Sharonda Johnson, Executive Director for School and Community Relations, and Brishan Thompson, Coordinator for School and Community Relations. The following participants will be located in the boardroom at 14705 Wood Forest Boulevard, Houston, Texas 77015. Please answer here or present when your name is called. Trustee Norma Hernandez, John Moore, Associate Superintendent for Operations.
Here.
Terry Moore, Associate Superintendent for Accountability and Academic Support.
Here.
Brian Clements, Chief of Police and Executive Director for Security and Cybersecurity.
Here.
Geneva Boyette, Executive Assistant to the Board of Trustees and Superintendent.
Here.
Anna Salinas, Administrative Assistant to the Superintendent's Office. And I, Dr. Angie Williams, Superintendent of Schools, here. Staff members in the boardroom will practice social distancing as required, where there will be no more than 6 people in the boardroom as outlined. We will use masks, hand sanitizers, disinfectants, etc. as recommended. The video conference will be facilitated by the board president and staff as needed. Again, in an attempt to follow all health-related guidelines, everyone will practice social distancing. I will now turn this meeting over to Ramon Garza, board president.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. The Board of Trustees of Galena Park Independent School District is now convening an emergency meeting on Tuesday, May 14th, 2020 via video conference. The time is 4:39 p.m. I want to welcome the viewers to this meeting of the Board of Trustees. As Galena Park ISD Board of Trustees, we are here to set goals, listen to reports from the superintendent, approve budget contracts, personnel appointments, and make policies for the district. It is not the role of the board to make day-to-day operational decisions. The management and day-to-day operations of the district are the responsibility of the superintendent. We have policies and procedures in place to resolve concerns and issues. This is a public meeting of the Board of Trustees, not a meeting of the public. Prior to this meeting, board members received information related to items on today's agenda. Agenda items will not necessarily be handled in the order listed on this notice. The meeting is open to all who wish to hear the matters discussed. Thank you for taking the time to join us this afternoon and for your interest in Galena Park Independent School District. Ms. Boyette, are there any citizen participate items for this afternoon?
No, there are none.
Thank you, Ms. Boyette. Ms. Boyette, are there any public comment items for this afternoon?
No, there are none.
Thank you. An executive session of the board will now be held on the matters contained in the notice for the meeting as authorized by sections 551.001 through sections 551.084 of the Texas Government Code, the Texas Opens Meeting Act. The time is 4:40 p.m. Staff, with the exception of Dr. Moore and Ms. Boyette, other staff members are dismissed from the boardroom at this time. And please stop the live streaming. Executive session is adjourned. The live streaming has begun again, and the board is now in open session. The time is 5:44 p.m. I will entertain a motion on the items covered in executive session. Is there a motion to approve the employment of Dr. John Moore as Galena Park ISD Superintendent effective July 1, 2020?
I know as far as move, we approve the employment of Dr. John Moore as Galena Park ISD Superintendent effective July 1st, 2020.
Second the motion, Jeff Miller.
If the motion passes, I, Ramon Garza, authorize GPISD to utilize my electronic signature for this item. Ms. Stevens, do you authorize the use of electronic signature as well?
I do authorize the use of my electronic signature.
A motion was made by Noe Esparza and second by Jeff Miller. As I call your name, please state your name and indicate your vote by stating in favor, oppose, or abstain. Jeff Miller.
Jeff Miller, in favor.
Adrian Stevens.
Adrian Stevens, in favor.
Wilford Broussard.
Wilfred Broussard, in favor.
Wanda Johnson.
Wanda Johnson, in favor.
Noe Esparza.
Noe Esparza, in favor.
Norma Hernandez.
Norma Hernandez, in favor.
I, Ramon Garza, in favor. The motion carried 7-0 with no abstention. Is there a motion to approve the terms of employment contract with Dr. John Moore in accordance with the terms discussed in closed session and authorize the board president and vice president to execute the contract on behalf of Galena Park ISD Board of Trustees?
I, Adrian Stevens, move we approve the terms of the employment contract and authorize the board president and vice president to execute the contract as presented.
I, Norma Hernandez, second the motion.
If the motion passes, I, Ramon Garza, authorize GPISD to utilize my electronic signature for this item. Mr. Miller, do you authorize the use of electronic signature as well?
Yes, Jeff Miller, I authorize the use of electronic signature.
A motion was made by Adrian Stevens and second by Norma Hernandez. As I call your name, please state your name and indicate your vote by stating in favor, oppose, or abstain. Jeff Miller.
Jeff Miller, in favor.
Adrian Stevens.
Adrian Stevens, in favor.
Wilford Broussard.
Wilfred Broussard, in favor.
Wanda Johnson.
Wanda Johnson, in favor.
Noe Esparza.
Noe Esparza, in favor.
Norma Hernandez.
Norma Hernandez, in favor.
I, Ramon Garza, am in favor. The motion carries 7-0 with no abstentions. Is there a motion to approve the application for Maria Energy Partners for an appraisal value limitation on qualified properties as presented and discussed with legal counsel in closed session? Further, the board authorizes the superintendent to review the application for completeness and submit to the comptroller. In addition, the board authorizes the superintendent to enter into any necessary agreement to extend the deadline for board action beyond 150 days, subject to the board ratification, and take any appropriate related action.
I, Wilfred Broussard, move we approve the application process as presented.
Noe Esparza, second the motion.
If the motion passes, I, Ramon Garza, authorize GPISD to utilize my electronic signature for this item. Ms. Stevens, do you authorize the use of electronic signature as well?
I do authorize the use of my electronic signature.
A motion was made by Wilford Broussard and second by Noe Esparza. As I call your name, please state your name and indicate your vote by stating in favor, oppose, or abstain. Jeff Miller.
Jeff Miller, I approve.
Adrian Stevens.
Adrian Stevens, in favor.
Wilford Broussard.
Wilfred Broussard, in favor.
Wanda Johnson.
Wanda Johnson in favor.
Noe Esparza,
Noe Esparza in favor.
Norma Hernandez,
Norma Hernandez in favor.
I, Ramon Garza, in favor. The motion carries 7-0 with no abstention. Is there a motion to authorize the superintendent to rename Colwell Consulting to assist the district in processing the application for appraised value limitations on qualified property for Maria Energy Partners as presented and discussed with legal counsel in closed session?
I, Adrian Stevens, move we authorize the superintendent to retain Colwell Consulting as presented.
Seconded.
Can you state your name?
Wanda Johnson, second motion.
If the motion passes, I, Ramon Garza, authorize GPISD to utilize my electronic signature for the item. Ms. Stevens, do you authorize the use of electronic signature as well?
I authorize the use of my electronic signature.
A motion was made by Adrian Stevens and second by Wanda Johnson. As I call your name, please state your name and indicate your vote by stating in favor, oppose, or abstain. Jeff Miller,
Jeff Miller in favor.
Adrian Stevens,
Adrian Stevens in favor.
Wilford Broussard,
Wilford Broussard in favor.
Wanda Johnson,
Wanda Johnson in favor.
Noe Esparza,
Noe Esparza in favor.
Norma Hernandez,
Norma Hernandez in favor.
I, Ramon Garza, am in favor. The motion carries 7-0 with no abstentions. Is there a motion to authorize the superintendent to retain Thompson and Horton LLP to assist with legal advice and development of necessary legal documents related to the application for appraised value limitations on qualified property from Maria Energy Partners as presented and discussed with legal counsel in closed session?
I, Wilford Broussard, move we authorize the superintendent to retain Thompson and Horton LLP as presented.
I, Adrian Stevens, second the motion.
If the motion passes, I, Ramon Garza, authorize GPISD to utilize my electronic signature. Adrian Stevens, do you do the same?
I do authorize the use of my electronic signature.
As I call you, a motion was made by Wilford Broussard and second by Adrian Stevens. As I call your name, please state your name and indicate your vote. Jeff Miller,
Jeff Miller, I approve.
Adrian Stevens in favor.
Wilford Broussard,
Wilford Broussard in favor.
Wanda Johnson,
Wanda Johnson in favor.
Noe Esparza,
Noe Esparza in favor.
Norma Hernandez,
Norma Hernandez in favor.
I, Ramon Garza, in favor. The motion passed 7-0 with no abstentions.
Okay, Mr. Garza, if we could stop right there before we start the next portion of the meeting, please.
I, Jeff Miller, need a drink.
I'll second that motion, Jeff. You can see it.
Thank you, guys.
Let me go. Just stay right there, gentlemen.
You guys hear us now?
You can hear it.
Dr. John C. Moore, on behalf of the outstanding Galena Park ISD team of 8. We congratulate you on being named the next superintendent of this amazing district, Galena Park ISD. So congratulations to you, and please accept this little token of our congratulations, and we look forward to you doing some amazing things for our district.
Thank you, guys. Thanks. I hope y'all can hear me. Thanks. I got balloons. Thanks, guys.
Okay, we're ready to begin the next portion of the meeting, Mr. Garber.
We will now begin the emergency video conference meeting. Today's invocation will be presented by Jeff Miller, since he's thirsty, and the pledges will be led by all. Jeff, will you please lead us in prayer?
Yes, those who wish, please bow with me for a minute. Almighty God, our Heavenly Father, we're so thankful for this beautiful day and for our many blessings. We're thankful for these people who try to serve our school district. We're thankful for this great district and this great country. Be with us today in all we do, say, and think. Amen.
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 I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag of
United
the
States
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God,
one and indivisible.
one and indivisible.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any board member may make a comment during this portion of the agenda without prior posting being required. Comment items may not pertain to the character of any student, staff, board member, and may not be discussed or deliberated upon at this time. Does anyone have a comment at this time? I just want to say thanks to Dr. Williams for being our leader for the past 9 years, and congratulate John on taking over. And we know y'all are both leaving. You're leaving at a hard time, and you're starting at a hard time. But we're gonna get through this. So congratulations to both of y'all. One for retiring and taking care of grandbabies, and one for starting.
Yes, that's the exciting portion. Thank you so much, Mr. Garza, and thank you, board members, for all you've done, all your support for the past 9 years. And I look forward to our district continuing to grow and doing amazing things for the wonderful 22,500 kids we serve.
Thank you for all you've done, Dr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Esparza.
Thank you, Dr. Williams.
Thank you, Ms. Hernandez.
I will entertain a motion to hire 20.5 new positions for the 2021 school year.
I, Jeff Miller, move that we approve the hiring of 20.5 new positions for the 2020 to 2021 school year.
I know.
We support that motion.
A motion was made by Jeff Miller and second by Noe Esparza. As I call your name, please state your name and indicate your vote by stating in favor, oppose, or abstain. Jeff Miller.
Jeff Miller, in favor.
Adrian Stevens.
Adrian Stevens, in favor.
Wilford Broussard.
Wilfred Broussard, in favor.
Wanda Johnson. Wanda Johnson.
I think we may have lost her.
Noe Esparza.
Noe Esparza, in favor.
Norma Hernandez.
Norma Hernandez, in favor.
I, Ramon Garza, in favor. The motion carries 6-0 with no abstentions. With regards to financial consent agenda, with respect to the financial consent agenda, do we want to remove any item for separate vote or take the agenda as is and direct GPISD to affix the electronic signatures of Ramon Garza, President, and Adrian Stevens, Secretary, as necessary?
Jeff Miller, move that we take the financial consent agenda as presented.
I, Norma Hernandez, second the motion.
If the motion passes, I, Ramon Garza, authorize GPISD to utilize my electronic signature for this item. Ms. Stevens, do you authorize the use of your electronic signature as well?
I do authorize the use of my electronic signature.
A motion was made by Jeff Miller and second by Norma Hernandez. As I call your name, please state your name and indicate your vote by saying in favor, oppose, or abstain. Jeff Miller.
Jeff Miller, in favor.
Adrian Stevens.
Adrian Stevens, in favor.
Wilford Broussard.
Wilfred Broussard, in favor.
Wanda Johnson. Noe Esparza.
Noe Esparza, in favor.
Norma Hernandez.
Norma Hernandez, in favor.
I, Ramon Garza, I'm in favor. The motion carried 6-0 with no abstention. There being no other business before the board at this time, the meeting is adjourned. The time is 6:01 p.m.